Arvoyarns.
Clap for the alignment, baby.
Welcome to Arvoyarns. Oh. Welcome to another episode of Arvoyarns.
Is it 12?
Could be.
It's 12. I was born on Friday the 13th, and I don't know why I was thinking about this today, but my brother was born on Wednesday the 11th. It's my brother's birthday on Tuesday. June 11th. Yeah. And shout out to my brother. And it was so funny because he was born on Wednesday the 11th, and the due date was Friday the 13th, and he's younger than me. And my mom was actually like ecstatic. She's like, "Oh man, I have 2 Friday the 13th babies." And the doctor was like, "You can't do that. That would be terrible." And he was like totally serious. Like, here's like a man of science, and he's just like dead serious, superstitious. Like, no, you cannot have 2 babies on Friday the 13th. And then she's like, "Well, like, I don't know, like, if my due date's that day, like, it's probably fine then." And then there was some complication, and 13th was the complication, and they forced the birth on the 11th.
Do you know where the superstition comes from?
No, but I know that they don't have the 13th floor on Hubble.
Yeah, I've encountered that.
Which is really, it's just really funny, like, what people will do for the sake of, like, traditions, like, just because people said it, and then it was just like, they said it with enough emotion, you're like, yeah! No 13th floor.
Well, I like being able to look out for superstitious things, like, you know, not walking underneath the ladder, or, like, not opening an umbrella inside, you know? Because I'm just sort of like...
Those are just not wise. I think that a lot of
unwise things.
Those like, it's funny, like, a lot of things that are, like, supposed to be, like, old wives' tales or superstitious, it just turns out, like, just not very practical. Just don't walk under a ladder. Just generally, really bad idea.
That's so true.
Dude, we just ran into a guy, and he was,
well, in a way...
So you were taking forever, and you're like,
I was outside on the stoop, and I, struck up a conversation with this guy who was just going through some stuff. You know what I mean? I don't know if he was homeless, but I think he was.
Yeah. I mean, he was definitely
dealing with life. You know, his
drunk,
girlfriend had left him, and he was crying about it, and wasn't sure.
He was so
how to start over, you know.
He was so emotional. It was pretty beautiful, really. I mean, like, tragic.
Yeah. I mean.
But it was just so raw. I mean, it was like he was like reaching out. It was like he was actively falling deeper into the abyss, and yet as he was falling, he was like, I don't want this to happen to me. And he was like trying to communicate with us, and he was actually quite coherent.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, he kept being like, I don't know if this makes sense. Like, kept saying that over and over again. But like, he actually was like really, he was very self-aware.
Yeah, he's like,
I mean? Like,
this is destroying my life. I don't want this to happen to me. And it was like, wow, he's like watching his own descent into madness, and he's like, I'm trying to make it stop. And he's like trying as hard as he can. He's like there's just so much negative energy momentum in one direction, and it's literally like he's like clawing at reality itself, like trying to like grind it to a halt, and like anything he can do, like, as it's so deep now that he's like actively like, he's like, I don't want to do this anymore, and he's like drinking. Like as he says it, and it was so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, he himself said, he's like, you're talking to me like a human being. Thank you for doing that. You know what I mean? Which just goes to the sort of the self-awareness of it. Like, yeah, you know, I had seen him across the road, you know, like asking some people for change, and he came over, and we're talking. You know, he had the story of just. I mean, it wasn't just the alcohol per se, but like how to get over, you know, when someone who you were in love with, like, betrays you in some way, like he just described.
Yeah, well, it was pretty
meeting this
crazy
woman, you know, like not even that long ago, but he was like, we were in love, you know, it was like for real. but just all the drugs and shit just made it so that they couldn't communicate, you know. And then eventually she left. And he's, in and out of hospital, and yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's like not just quitting drinking, not just figuring out like a reason to live, but like how do you,
How do you then like practice that?
Well, yeah, like, how do you figure out like what to do with like that part of your head that is still like devoted to this person that you can't really spend time with anymore?
Yeah, or any concept really, like, because it was the same thing with the drinking too. He's like, how do I stop doing this? And I was like, and it was, hopefully, fortuitous. It was always relevant in a way. I was talking to my therapist earlier today, and we were talking about addiction, and I was like, for the longest time, I was saying like, don't do this, like, don't do that, and I realized that when you do that type of when you frame it that way, you're constantly thinking about the thing. It's not actually,
it's interesting, yeah.
And so you're actually still like flooding your brain with it, and so it's really difficult to focus on other things. And so I realized ultimately, it's not that I need to ultimately stop doing this, it's that I need to do other things instead, and then shift my entire focus to like just focusing on things that are more important to me, and just being around those things, and just surrounding myself and immersing myself in those things, and just doing more of that, and that will naturally cause those addictions that we have to fall away.
Yeah, especially because what if you devote your entire life to not doing something, or like sort of like vetoing this, I feel like it ultimately leads to kind of paralysis, where you don't trust any of the decisions you make, because you keep
they're always
doing exactly the opposite of what you're supposed to do. So it's like, why get out of step? You know what I mean? It's just going to go downhill from there,
And on the recent Tyler, the Creator album, which is really fantastic, for the most part anyway, he's like, there's this one snippet where I think it's Taco, this like dude in Odd Future, is like, what you end up running from, you end up chasing.
Yeah, it's probably true. It's interesting. I read this book recently. It was like a self-help book, which is not a genre that I usually pick up. It was like given to me.
I'm surprised.
I think particularly because they sort of couched their theory like in terms of sort of like quantum physics or whatever. So it's like sort of like, okay, let's see what they're coming up with.
Yeah.
And I will say, I had like sort of complicated feelings about the book. One thing that is certain is that it was like a lovely book. Like reading it, like just the lady's tone, like Pam Grout or whatever. She just brings a smile
Shout out
to
to
your
Andrew
face.
Rabb. He's my colleague. He's re-grouting his sink this weekend.
Well, okay.
He told me that. It was like the last thing we talked about before we left for the day today. I was like, so what are you gonna do? He's like, I'm gonna re-grout my sink. It's like, okay.
Suppose it could be Groot. I don't know. I don't know how her name.
It's Grout.
Well, it's a pleasure to read her book. Like she just has like a very like genial tone. Like it's like reading the book like just makes you
mean?
Well, it just makes you smile. Let's just say
Genial means
like
to bring
good
pleasure or
natured.
something. Okay. Like a nice
Even
grandmother is
tempered.
like genial.
Well, maybe not grandmother, but
No, not good enough.
maybe not quite that.
Not good intentioned enough.
Well, I just mean it because she's like also like dropping all these like pop culture references to kind of like spice it up a little bit. Which
You got it.
grandmas do that too, but not perhaps a stereotype. In any case, so I was like trying to sort of like separate in my mind like the claims being made that like if you do affirmations and like visualize what you want and like be like sort of like accurate and like detailed with your desires, that this will somehow like let the giant quantum field that controls everything, like, which is also God, like, know what to give you back, and that like most people's problems are the result of their incoherent desires, like they're like desiring two different things, and
It's
so
a subject
for
of
themselves.
relationship of like how are you gonna project things out.
Yeah, so I am a firm believer in like the idea that we like have very little understanding of how like quantum physics like relates to like our biology
Exactly.
and like stuff like that.
That's essential.
So for all I know, something like that might work. Whether you can prove it is another thing. But whether you even need to invoke quantum theory is like a totally separate issue from like exactly what you're talking about, which is that like
because you seem to do it no matter what.
yeah, you can't just get
Here I am.
trapped in the negative spiral. You know what I mean? It's constantly being like, I'm not gonna drink, or like I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do this, not gonna do this, because yeah, in some way you're constantly sort of like using those same pathways of thought.
Yeah, because that was his thing. He was like, I don't want to drink, but how do I do that?
Yeah, but how do I do it? Yeah, totally. It's as if you need to like be aiming towards something else, just point in another direction
Yeah, just point in another direction.
altogether.
Sometimes that's all it takes. Just like to save yourself from a fire, just turn around from the direction of the fire.
Yeah.
I saw Rocket Man the other day. The John.
The Elton John.
The Elton John movie. Holy shit, dude! That was one of the like top. I'm telling you, I'm calling it right now. Top 10 best movies I've ever seen. It was just so well done, start to finish. There like wasn't a single wasted scene in the whole movie, and the way that they I like hate musicals with a passion. I just think they're so corny. But the way that they like brought the music in and like showed.
We should
like,
talk about that like,
how
once
deep.
we're done talking about this, because like the corniness of musicals fascinates me.
Okay.
Very specific.
So they like, it was just so crazy because you'd like, oh whoa, like these lyrics in the song like really are about like this very specific thing in his life, and it was really interesting because he's had this guy that has written all of his songs. He like does all of the like instrumentation behind them and everything, but the actual lyrics are all written by another guy, and they're all written like all of his famous songs are written by like one dude. That he
Really?
that he became friends with when he was like really young, and then they like make it big. But I mean, dude, that guy had demons on demons, and he just
Wait, the writer?
no, Elton John.
Oh.
Elton John, dude, he was like he did like all the drugs, and he didn't know how to like come out of the closet, and like his business manager who was his business manager was his lover. So he had an old business manager, gets to America, starting to make it big, meets this guy at like one of the shows that he's gonna do, and he's like this gay Scottish dude who actually is one of the dudes from Game of Thrones, one of the Stark sons that dies in season 3. I forget his name, but that guy.
Small word.
Yeah, right. So he like woos Elton John, and then he's like, well, I'm a manager too. He's like, they don't know how to take care of you. I got you, and so I'll be your manager. And he turns out to be like super abusive, super manipulative, and like takes 20. He has in his contract, he gets 20% of Elton John's royalties for the rest of his life. And like there's this part in the movie where
Wait, is this still true?
Yeah.
Because in a way, this movie is like a perfect way to get back at this dude. I mean, like,
Dude,
now everyone finally
it
knows.
makes him out to be like he's a terrible guy, man. And I mean, like there's this part in the movie. There's this part in the movie where right before Elton John tries to like kill himself one time, the dude literally says to him, he's at a party, and Elton John like walks out. He's like, we gotta talk. But like when he walks up to him, he's like at Elton John's villa, and there's this pool boy that's like sucking the office man, the band manager's dick, and so he's just like so disrespectful to Elton. He's just like cheating on him right in front of him. super abusive, and then he like manipulates him, and he's like, oh, your family's here, so now you gotta like dance, monkey boy, because your fucking family's here. And then they get in this argument, and he's like, I don't even care if you kill yourself, I'll still get 20% for the rest of my life.
Okay, so he's like the villain of the movie.
Well, he's one of the villains, right? Because like his parents are like, because he comes out to his mom like way before he comes out in public, but she's like, you'll never be loved properly. So that fucks him up.
In what sense?
What do you mean? In what sense? Like,
does she mean it like because society's so repressed?
No,
or like that's like a gender thing, like only a woman can love.
Well, she thinks it's wrong
right.
that he's gay, and then I guess she thinks that only a woman could like love him correctly, probably as well. And then, yeah, and then she's just like super manipulative and just like, well, give me more money. I mean, I deserve it, you know, I'm your mom. And then like his dad just like never loved him and just like never cared about him. He's just like going through life like this. He's like this combusting, like supercharged, like star, just like flying through the universe, just like putting out this incredible beauty as he's trying to like grapple with his own misery, and he's taking all these drugs, and oh my god, it was fascinating. I mean, I was literally on the edge of my seat.
Wow. But how far does the movie go up?
Oh, until modern day.
Wow. And
then they're like, he started this, he's been sober for 28 years. He starts this AIDS foundation for HIV and AIDS, and they've raised $450 million.
Wow.
What the fuck? That's crazy. But yeah, really great movie. If you've never seen it, or I didn't know that much about Elton John, and I just was like, it was just fucking great. I saw it with my girl.
Yeah, I didn't really know the story.
She said that it was better than the Bohemian Rhapsody. I never saw the Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, the internet said people had mixed feelings about that one. Although I loved whatever the actor in it, because he's also a guy in Mr. Robot.
I don't know either of those.
What's his name? Rami Malek. Maybe.
Movies are so funny because the best movies, to me, are some of like the best things ever. Like some of the most transformational, super transcendent, like just like, you know, everybody knows their favorite movies and they've changed their life, right? But most movies fucking suck. And so I'm always so apprehensive to see movies because they're almost all so terrible and a waste of time. For me, anyway.
What was like a formative movie, like from your early years?
I really like the Hayao Miyazaki movies, like Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke. I really like The Departed.
There was a really good documentary, by the way, like about
Hayao Miyazaki?
like Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, Studio Ghibli is like completely covered in plants. Like and all the movies are like super centered around nature. They like take the studio and then just imagine like this entire plot of land on it, and just imagine like a giant jungle just grows into the ground, like just completely covered in plants. Like even you can never see like a clear shot of the building, basically.
I was at the I guess the original building, because they turned it into a museum.
Ah, really?
And and you could walk through it and stuff, and you could see like in there, you know, where they were sitting, and like giant fucking ashtray, like a giant basket full of colored pencils.
How big was it?
And all this stuff.
How big was the ashtray?
It was big.
I was imagining like this.
Not quite that big.
That would be cumbersome.
Yeah, there's like a certain vibe. Like I don't even know if it's like would be legal or possible now, but like especially like in the early '90s, just these like smoke-filled rooms where these like guys just like neurotically animating like one thing after another.
And they're Japanese, so they're like, don't do anything besides work. You know, actually.
But these were like Japanese hippies, so we don't know.
No, I mean they still did. Dude, I bet you they worked so hard, dude.
Oh, like, I'm not denying that, but
like
that they.
No, I mean I bet you they
hard,
worked a lot though. Like, it's just really common in the culture, man. Like, you know, I was talking to one of my colleagues who goes over to our Japanese offices a lot, and he's like, I was like, what do you like about the Japanese culture? And he's like, he's like, well, it's a blessing and a curse as far as the effects that it has on people's lives. But he said they just work so goddamn hard, and it's so respectable.
Yeah. Americans aren't that much better,
He said that they're
more chilled out.
He said, Americans are way more chilled out. Dude, he said that the base standard is 50 hours a week. It's not 40, it's 50. And if you don't go out to drink with your peers, you're fucked. Like, from a career point, like, you are fucked. Like, you have to do that shit. That's what it's actually interesting, and that happens in a lot of cultures too. Like, I was talking to one guy, and he used to work in Turkey, and they had this drink. I don't know what it was called, but it was about yay tall, and they would get them for lunch. It was like this tall, and they would get it for like 6 guys, and you didn't leave. And this is like in the middle of the day. And it was the equivalent of like 4 Guinnesses is like what your serving would end up being. And if you didn't finish it, it was super disrespectful. But he said it sucked because you couldn't do anything the rest of the day. Your day ended basically at 12 o'clock.
Sure.
Whenever you guys went out to lunch.
I remember when a couple years ago, my friend had been teaching English in Japan for 2 years.
Toby?
And Tim. Oh. And I went to go say hi and to help him move out, and we flew back to the U.S. together, along with my other friend, Jeremy. And the first time I'd been to Japan, we went to like Tokyo and Kyoto and like whatever, and saw temples and like all sorts of stuff. And also, like some of these like places where like the salarymen like hang out, like eating their noodles. And, it was very interesting when so Tim lived in this like the province. I guess it's a province. I don't know, Kyotango or whatever. So it's like more rural Japan.
Okay.
Where he taught, and so it's like really cool to see that.
Oh wow, that's super cool.
Like his friends were like farmers, you know what I mean, and like we got to go out like while they were having some kind of like festival. We had like a big lunch like out in the fields, super hot weather and stuff like that. I got to see the kind of.
It's quite humid in Japan, eh? That's what I've heard.
I suppose it depends on where you are.
Oh, okay.
But there it was quite hot and humid. We were doing this pilgrimage a couple days later, and it was like in the 90s, very humid. But it was kind of nice, once you just sort of just so bathed in sweat that it did feel like the difference between inside and outside had been erased, which was appropriate because it was a Buddhist pilgrimage. We have to finish. I may have even talked about this at some point in a previous episode, but there's this famous pilgrimage you can do on the island of Shikoku. It's like 88 Buddhist temples.
Whoa.
Founded about 1,000 years ago ish. Kukai, the monk, had a dream about a scripture, the esoteric Buddhism that was only available in Japan. So he went to go find it, found it, came back, founded these temples, and they're in all sorts of different landscapes. You do feel kind of like you're in Legend of Zelda or something, collecting the different medallions and the different parts of nature.
Shikoku Island actually plays significance in a Studio Ghibli movie, Pompoko.
Yes, the one with the yeah.
And they these raccoons, because like in Japanese lore, raccoons are shapeshifters and they can like transform into all this.
That movie,
shit.
I think that's my favorite one.
That's one of my favorites for sure. They kind of just bounce. They kind of just bounce in and out of the top spot depending on my mood. Mm-hmm. To be honest, but it definitely resides in the top spot sometimes. And like they have to go to Shikoku Island because there's like this really serious group of sage transforming foxes that are just like totally fucking next level.
So yeah, well, there are Zen masters hidden in the countryside.
How big is the
It's
island?
true. It's pretty big. I mean, it's not.
It's like, what,
I mean, I
10
don't
by
know.
10 square miles? 50
Oh,
by
it's bigger than
50?
that. Yeah, it's a pretty big island.
Okay. How long
I
did
don't
it
wanna-
take to go around it?
So we didn't do the whole thing. So we did the
Ah.
first like 15 or 16 or so temples, and so
Oh, there's
we
80.
got to go back. There's like 88. So we were last there in 2016. So we
You
gotta
gotta
go
go
back
like
in
7
2020.
more times.
Well, we'll do more. We couldn't. We didn't. You know, we got through 16 in like 4 or 5 days.
Sounds tiring.
So yeah, it was great though. I loved it. It was fun. Although famously, my friend had just bought some new shoes before going on the hike, and they didn't quite fit. And he got all these blisters, and he was like,
Oh man, that sounds like the best and the worst thing to have on a Buddhist pilgrimage.
yes, he really had to like deal with the pain and like think about that. You know,
It was
it
interesting.
made me feel. I mean, it made me feel perhaps. Probably gave me the impression I had more athletic prowess than I really did in comparison. You know what I mean? Because it's like limping, so I was like, oh, I can really do this. Go up these stairs here.
Go upstairs. It's funny when I was teaching in Thailand. This is the first time that I got exposed to this type of meditation called vipassana, which is a silent meditation that you typically do, at least your first time. You do it for 10 days of silent meditation at these retreats, and it's like thousands and thousands of years old, and it's actually the original. It's the original teaching of what Buddha taught, because Buddha only taught a meditation technique. That's like the only thing that he actually was trying to teach people, and so
I mean,
well, I mean, he would in the
Sure.
sense
Sure,
that
that's
like he would be like, yeah, be nice to people and stuff, but like this is the way to purify your body, and so I started hearing about it in Thailand. I didn't get to do it in Thailand, so then I go to New Zealand, and they've got them there too. Almost went, couldn't make it, so I ended up going. It was really interesting because I got hired at a startup when I was in Australia, right? At the beginning of my time there, I got hired for a startup. But then they're like, okay, so the founder was from Australia, but he was working in Houston now because Houston's got a tech scene. They had 2 places, Australia in Melbourne, where they started, and then Houston, where they had their new office as well. And so he was there building up the American branch. And he was back in Melbourne for a wedding, and also he interviewed me while we were there, and we're at this, we do the interview at the office, and then we go have beers at this place called Asian Beer Cafe, which is overlooking the center plaza, right in downtown city center. Melbourne is just fucking gorgeous there. And so he's like, well, you got the job. You got the job. But I want you to meet me he wanted me to meet me some other time to do something first.
okay, like a test.
Yeah, it was like a test. And it was on the last day that the Vipassana retreat was going to be. And I had already booked the Vipassana retreat 4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so it basically would have had to cancel the Vipassana retreat. And it was this thing, right, where he was like, I really want you to do this. I really like you to come to this. And then you'll basically have the job. And I was like, I didn't have a lot of time to think about this. He tells me this, and then I'm thinking in my head,
yeah.
fuck! Is that really the day? Oh my god, it's the day. I had no time to think about this, and I'm just I'm sorry, man, I can't do it. I can't go. I have to go to this retreat. I owe it to myself. I've been working. I've been wanting to do it for 3 fucking years. I guess it was 2 years at that point. I've been planning it for months now, and I really think that it'll have a very positive impact on my life anyway. So I think it'll be very beneficial that if I can go and then I can work with you after. I think I'll be a very much a better person for it if I were to do it than if I wasn't gonna do it. And he's like, you know what? I respect that. You got the job. So just gave me the job on the spot.
Well, I'm glad that had a happy ending. Yeah.
And then I started working for them after, and the company dissolved after a month, or the Australian branch dissolved after a month. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, the whole being a quantumist and not craving something too much and not being adverse to something, not being like, man, I won't be happy until I get this thing, or I won't be happy until this thing stops, and being like in the middle, that was stress to more than anything I had ever experienced in my life when we were at this retreat. And it was just fascinating being alone with myself. Just like just at points these intense moments of bliss, coupled by not so much sadness, but agonizing boredom. I'm just like, I really don't want to do this anymore. And at times, you just didn't want to.
Well, what? So, I mean, paint the scene a little bit, like here.
So you meditate for 10 hours a day, and then
do you have to just sit?
You get
for
up
10 hours, or do you get to?
You move. I mean, you don't stay at one point for 10 hours. So you basically get up at 4:30, and then you meditate from 4:30.
Like, can you do like a walking meditation, or does it have to be?
Well, I mean, you can do that at other times,
okay.
But there's 10 hours of sitting meditation. You can't write anything. There's no writing material. Obviously, you don't have your phones or anything. You're not even supposed to look at people. And you basically wake up at 4:30. From 4:30 to 6, there was a you would meditate, and then from 6 to 6:30 there was like the head dude would do some chanting, and then from 6:30 to 7 it was like get yourself together and then go to breakfast, and then you had more meditation at 9:30, and that meditation would go till like lunchtime, or there was like a couple breaks, but then there was just like lunchtime. But the thing is, like, after you ate, like, you couldn't meditate because it was your body, like, you had something inside your body, so it was very difficult to be like centered. There were things that were like actively distracting your body. So there was like a break after breakfast, and then you'd meditate right before lunch for like 2 hours, and then you'd have lunch, and then there was like a long break, and it was big enough where you could walk around, and there was like a little wooded area, but you're completely separated from the women too. It's like women are on one side, guys are on the other. You're ultimately in the same like building, but your guys are on like opposite sides, like right next to each other. It's an incredible experience. I mean,
what were the other people like experiencing? Like, could you tell like they were like? I mean, is this the kind of thing where anyone who signed up for it kind of like knew what they were getting into?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because on the last day, you could talk because they basically were like, on the last day, you have to be able to talk because a lot of motherfuckers are like going back to society. So like, you can't just
the transition.
Yeah, you can't like it's a like a hard transition for a lot of people. It wasn't too difficult for me. I mean, I had this one guy. That was literally like, yeah, I didn't even know it was 10 days and you couldn't talk and shit. And I was like, what the fuck? How did you not know that?
He's cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. There was this woman there. There was this woman there named Kat. Shout out to Kat. So Kat had one of the most powerful gazes I had ever seen. She's quite a pure woman. She had like really done a lot of work. Right, you could tell that she had done a lot of work on herself, and she's actually a meditation teacher. I didn't even speak to her. She had such a strong presence, and I don't know if this would happen to me now. I've had instances where I've met women like this. I met men like this too, but it was a different thing. It was like a woman just like super gorgeous and just super powerful, super present, and she obviously like super powered just from this experience that had just happened to her. I'm sure she was going really deep. I mean, far deeper than a lot of the people there, I would imagine. But she has such a powerful presence, but it was so pure that it was actually really hard to be in her presence. And so she literally just walked by a group of guys, and we all looked at her. And then she turned her head, just totally in blissful happiness and positivity, and every guy looked away. Every single guy looked away. I didn't even know. I didn't know anything about her. Right, that's the only experience I had with her. And then I went to the studio in Melbourne, and she turned out that she was like best friends with like the owners of the studio, and she would like do a bunch of stuff there and stuff. So I found out about her that way. But it was a really eclectic mix. I actually met my roommate there that I ended up living with, but he ended up being like really he had like really bad OCD. Like I got into this habit when I was traveling. As you do, you're just like, I only buy what's absolutely necessary. So I wouldn't necessarily buy hand soap for like the houses I would live in. I do have hand soap now, folks, and I do use it regularly. It's funny because in some ways you might have thought that a person that would do a 10-day meditation retreat wouldn't do things like this, but he literally bought me hand soap, and then he would like look at it like every week, and if it wasn't down enough, he would like text me while I was at work, and he's like, "Hey man, doesn't seem like you use much of your hand soap."
Wow.
Yeah, are you using it? And I'm just like, what the
damn
fuck?
What a guy.
He's crazy. Yeah, he was an interesting cat. He was really about like, unfortunately, he was like really about like spiritual escapism, like about like, oh, like enlightenment will free me from this body because I won't be attached to this reality anymore. But he didn't. But it wasn't like enlightenment will free me from this body because I won't be attached to this reality because I'm not attached to this reality anymore, and I just will be existing in another paradigm of some sort, however that works. It was, oh no, I'm very much attached to this reality, and I fucking hate it, and I hate myself, and I hate my life, and I'm trying to use spirituality to fucking escape and like not go back into the reincarnation cycle. At least this is his like basic
Though,
mentality.
you know, if you're gonna use something to deal with those issues, it may as well be spirituality as opposed to
I don't know. I don't think it makes it any better, honestly.
Or whatever.
I don't think it necessarily makes it any better. I mean, there's crusades, there's alcoholic murderers. In a way, you couldn't have a crusade full of all alcoholics. It wouldn't be organized enough, you know.
Wow.
It would never.
They were.
It would never have been able to get off the ground, to that extent, anyway.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny. It's like that mentality of like world hatred. It's like, and sometimes it even shows up in the ancient texts themselves. You know, like it's not like so much like.
Oh, this isn't a new problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's over
been
the years
around.
Like certainly, you know, there's an interesting movie made. In fact, it's the only movie ever, as far as I know, made in Sanskrit.
Oh, what?
And it's about like Shankara, you know, this.
Who's Shankara?
He was like a yogi or whatever.
Oh shit! Maybe I should have known that. There's so many yogis, man.
I'm trying to remember the name of this big book that he wrote.
Swadananda.
Something about like the
Yoga
Brahma, not the yogas. That was Patanjali.
Yeah.
I think it's called the Brahma Sutra Bhasya.
Did he write? He wrote one of the texts.
Yeah, like one of the foundational texts.
Well, that would have been a long
like
time
kind of
ago.
like medieval.
Oh, medieval.
You know, like Hinduism, like Vedanta. Hinduism.
Vedanta.
The
The Vedas. Well, the Vedas are really old.
Yeah. So this was like a commentary on this.
I can't wait till we like have somebody like Joe Rogan, where we just be like, "Yo, young Jamie, like look it up." That'll be awesome.
I just don't want to get it wrong in case someone looks it up. But, you know, it's a very interesting book.
I would love if somebody roasted us for this.
You can't tell if it's
How
like...
you know we're doing something right, if somebody's like, fuck you,
Was
that's
it on
not
the
the
phone?
right text.
Oh, yeah,
If somebody who was like really did that, I'd feel so good about that. Okay, we're really getting somewhere. We're touching people's hearts.
Yeah, really. Yeah, the Brahma
So what was the
Sutras.
point?
Brahma Sutra Bhasya, I think it was. Anyway. Well, what can you say? Well, I was going to say a couple things about it. I mean, like, one is that, okay, I mean, this is like a guy who dies, like, in his early 30s, you know, after kind of, like, renouncing the world.
As you do.
But, like, was a kind of, you know, one of these, like, spiritual prodigies. I mean, like, people were, like, following him around when he was, like, a kid, you know.
Right. You see these people, I mean, they really exist. I've met some of these children that are really, really high
Yeah, it'll happen.
spirituality. It's fantastic. I'll tell a story. Look it up. You know, and he writes this huge commentary. It's very interesting, you know, like philosophically and whatever. But you can't like escape the sense, like reading it, like watching the movie, like reading the text, that there is this sort of like desire to, you know, escape the world, in the sense of like, I mean, it's such an interesting thing, right? Like, as a way of dealing with mortality, where you're like, you know, you spend all this time like trying to figure out how like not to die, but then it does seem like a kind of like a brilliant sleight of hand to be like, actually, the real challenge is to figure out like how to die permanently. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not
Like,
reincarnated. Well, that is it's interesting because
like, I think it's like really
that's
interesting.
Plato's
It's like-
ultimate idea. That's Plato's
Plato.
definition of philosophy was
Learning how to die.
Learning how to die. So it's funny how at the end of the day, it's
Well,
still, you know, where
Yeah, and that's
it was still.
Yeah, well, he too like is kind of working in
He believed in reincarnation.
yeah, totally. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's like there's a funny, well, I don't know about funny, but
Right, somewhere.
in one of the texts, yeah, there's like a thing. He like tells a story about how like, you know, you're gonna, after you die, you know, you get a chance to reincarnate, but you're gonna be given like the opportunity to like choose like what kind of life that you want.
Right.
And, you know, he's like, you know, the poor person, you know, chooses like, oh, he's like, I want to like live as a rich person, and like the rich person was like, it's so fucking boring when you're rich. Like, I want to be a poor person. Like, I want some authenticity here.
Is that what
And then,
rich people think? I
um,
don't know about
well,
that.
after they're dead,
Maybe.
and everyone basically chooses the opposite of what they were. Only the philosopher
stays.
a philosopher. It's like, I was fine.
Because they know it's the best juxtaposition.
But I don't know about in Plato. I'm trying to remember if ever Plato talks about the goal being to cease reincarnating. It's like, I think, at least in this sort of myth that he's telling.
No, I
the
think it's
dialogue,
just to like continue to like sort of like percolate the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and when Plato tells like such stories, they're often kind of like, not like ironic, but like literary. In a way that, like, it's not signaled as such in, like, you know, other things.
Well, you know what was very literal about Plato was that he was a damn good wrestler.
Right.
He was
a
really fucking good wrestler. And he would say that if you can't wrestle, then you don't know philosophy.
Yeah, wrestling and geometry. Two prerequisites.
Was geometry a prerequisite for him too?
Well, famously put above the academy, let no one ignorant of geometry enter here. So yes, geometry is also required.
He had this quote. I mean, I'm paraphrasing it, but he's like, if you like have a question in philosophy, just wrestle.
Just
and
wrestle.
you'll find out. You'll start to understand. I mean, there is something really about the embodiment of knowledge, right? That's something that I've been really big on lately. Like, I have this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I think about it all the time
like,
too, because I have all this knowledge I can't.
Comparatively, I have this vast cumulative knowledge pool in my head right?
Mhm.
Of like, oh wow, like this is how you like build a car. I don't actually know how to build a car, but like, but then can you do it? Like, you know it hypothetically, but can you embody the knowledge, right? Like, oh, I know this yoga move, but can I consistently do it? Oh, I know how to run 10 miles. I just go doot, 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 doot for 10 miles. But can you do it? Can you fucking do it? And the embodiment of that knowledge is the really big thing. And I think that using activities where it forces you to almost like pull from the ether your knowledge and be what you need to be made of for the experience, so fucking beneficial. I mean, that's why I exercise so copiously.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's like I struggle with this, like, when I'm working, with, like, math stuff, because it's like, sometimes it's so, like, I mean, to say it's complicated or intricate is, whatever, not to do it justice. It's just, like, it requires, like, a lot of attention, I suppose. And so, in a way, I'm just sitting there meditating, like, for hours, like, not really, it's like, I can't do anything else. Like, I couldn't wash the dishes. I couldn't move my body because I'm, like, too busy. Like, I'm too busy thinking about other things, to, like, devote any attention to that. And yet, there's always this need to, like, have it reflected back. Like, whether it's, in the form of, like, actually being able to, like, solve an equation on a piece of paper or write some computer program that, like, simulates something or whatever it is. But Lord knows if there was a way to translate that into, like, bodily movements, like, I would do it. But I struggle constantly with the, there's no physical, physical technology. There's no way to, like...
But what would be an example of something that you don't think you can embody that you practice in another fashion?
Like, mathematically?
Oh, like coding or something?
Well, I mean, it's like... I mean, it would be really interesting if you could map, some like really high dimensional, complicated, decorated space, like onto your physical body in some way. Would be amazing.
Isn't that just fashion?
But, like, it needs to be a tool which is able to think the thought for you. Like, you know what
fashion
I mean? Like, it's
is
not...
functional.
Yeah. I know, I'm not...
No,
Like,
it's
fashion.
I'm just fine.
Fashion's fine. I don't know, I'm trying to think of, like, an interesting example.
Well, we were talking about somebody close to both of us recently that they basically they have many ideas, but they haven't necessarily actualized. They don't embody a lot of those ideas. Like, and I agree with a lot of their sentiments, but they haven't tried to put into practice a lot of these ideas, and it's just like, well, ultimately, it's like one of two things. I mean, and you described them as them having said to you, "Oh, I'm a voyeur. I actually am a voyeur. I actually am a person who just wants to watch. I don't actually want to. I'm not the person to do the thing. I'm the person to read about the thing and to talk about the thing and to spread the idea of the thing. But I'm not the person to do the thing." And I think that that could be true. Like, that could really be your destiny. But I think for a lot of people, I think that it can be encouraged more to embody the knowledge. But I mean,
right.
You would argue
like,
a voyeur would actually be fully embodying the knowledge, even though they're not, because that's their destiny, right?
I mean, like in my instance, I mean, it's like the difficulty of, like, the technology doesn't exist to, like, embody it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like a choice, like, whether to embody or not.
You can't just make, like, this complex polyhedron.
It's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, like, you need, like, certain tools or, like, things to, like, map the ideas and the concepts, like, onto your physical body. You know what I mean? For it to, like, be able to think by moving.
Well, the funny thing about that is that I remember the first time I ever had a lucid dream, which only lasted like the equivalent of what you would imagine was like 10 seconds. Basically, I'm like walking in the woods, and then I'm like, oh my god, I'm dreaming, and then I like turn off from the path that I was, and I'm just like running. I'm just like running, like it's just like literally like I would in real life. It wasn't that fantastical, but then I'm like running my hands through the leaves, and I'm like, whoa! But I'm like, I can do anything. But once I realized I could really do anything, everything fell apart.
Yeah, that's what happened to me too.
Because
one time.
That's the thing about beings. We're quite lucky actually as humans because we can do a lot, but it's very difficult. It takes long time scales to do anything, and that's if everybody could just like shoot fire, we probably would never have gotten to this point because people would have gotten so good at shooting fire and like lifting up rocks and throwing them that the world would be fucked. And like we probably would never have gotten to this level of technology because people would just be operating in that paradigm.
Sure.
So too with the dream, like even the power of the dreamer, well, like even though I'm like infinitely powerful, if I destroy the landscape around me enough in the dream, the idea of how I'm existing in the dream now isn't tenable. I can't exist in like this weird vacuum space where there used to be land, where I'm now like floating. Like it becomes a more and more far-fetched concept even for the lucid dreamer. Mm-hmm. And so there has to be some restraint involved with one's own unbridled desires. And that's what's really interesting about being a human. I mean, that's what Buddha said about being a human. He said humans really uniquely qualified, or maybe not really uniquely, but he said like humans are in one of the best juxtapositions out of any being out there, because he said beings pretty much any lower than humans are really, really caught up in survival. So it's very difficult for them to transcend their current existence because they're so caught up in just living.
That's one theory.
And then he would say that the beings that are much higher than humans are so endowed with their enlightenment and their position in, like, I guess, existential reality or something, that they get too attached to that. And so they can't transcend that to go any further. But the human can do both. The human can be caught up in survival mode, but also survive and be all good, and also transcend their own reality. But they don't have so much power that they don't all get so caught up in it. It's possible to transcend it.
I was thinking that our friend Bobby should go on one of these retreats. Because there's something so interesting about, like, how...
Cool, man, I don't know.
But just to be able to sit there.
Bobby was the homeless guy.
Yeah, well, maybe not homeless, but...
The alcoholic guy.
Just, like... It's amazing to me, just as, like, a matter of human psychology, how things can seem completely impossible, but then an hour later, like 2 hours later, suddenly become possible again. That, like, you know, you get into these modes, self-contained modes of thought, which, you know, you can barely see any way out of, but if you just let it pass, then you're in a whole other world,
This
you know?
too shall pass. He's like,
And it's like...
I can't stop drinking. It's like, well, it'll pass if you just let it.
Yeah, like, it's amazing that it's like the thing that seems impossible is to do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that is the deep wisdom of all this stuff.
And I would just
to do nothing.
I would just say, I don't know if necessarily it is the right thing for Bobby to do, because in a sentence, like, I describe my Vipassana retreat as the easiest thing that I've ever done and the hardest thing that I've ever done, because all you're doing is sitting there. But all you're doing is sitting there. Like, think about it. 10 hours for 10 days. 100 hours. 100 hours of meditation. In 10 days? That's a lot. That's like more than most people will ever do in their entire lives. And I would argue I wasn't even meditating all of that time, because I would be like, oh, I can't do it anymore. And, like, you would be in so much pain sometimes from staying in the same position. It would be really agonizing. Your body would just ache, man.
Yeah, whenever I try to sit, I
Ache.
feel like my ankles just get.
Really, is your ankles?
Yeah, like I'm not very flexible.
It's not even really about flexibility. It ends up being really just about mental toughness. Because everybody's in pain. Honestly, it just gets to the point where like everybody's in pain.
Yeah. No, I've always had trouble sitting cross-legged. I mean, I guess I can do it now. It's
Show-
like on like a.
Do it for the
surface.
people, dude.
But like here.
Look at that.
Like when I was like in, like I remember like as a, like in
Some
elementary and
hater
middle
tried to
school,
form.
you know, everyone would be like sitting like cross-legged, and I was like, I can't do that.
It's a terrible ass.
Like I would just like kneel instead.
I've got these weighted sandbags, which I actually just gave to my neighbor. Shout out to Dave. I've been teaching him yoga lessons, but they're 10-pound weighted sandbags, and they're like long horizontal. And so you go into cross-legged, or you go into like full or half lotus, which are you like lift your leg and put it on top of your other leg, or do leg on top of other leg, and then you like fully on top of each other. And then you put the sandbags on the crease of your knee, like diagonally, and then it just pulls down your hip. You have like 20 pounds.
That actually
of force.
I kind of like that idea.
It is
Yeah.
so great, but it is intense.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
it's
because that's the hardest part.
strong.
Yeah, like totally, like keeping it like down.
Yeah, and it makes everything fall into place. But then everything's in place,
That's cool.
and that's.
Wait, were these like specialty made like for this purpose, or were they just?
I mean, you could probably
sandbags?
do them for other things, but I discovered them through yoga, going to a yoga class and seeing someone use them for that, a teacher, and they're like, hey, we're gonna do this. And I was like, ooh, I'm getting these. Amazon. Dude, I was listening to a dude, I was in a CrossFit class the other day. Shout out to CrossFit. Now I have to stop talking about it, but, there was this dude in class, and he was like, man, I'm in class, and it's been a really long time, and I'm just so fucking bored, but then I go on Amazon and I buy something, and then I'm good, and then I can get through the class. And I just thought to myself, I mean, I'm not in class, but I can totally relate to that, where you just like stress Amazon buy. I was like, wow, there must be literally, Jeff Bezos worth like, I think at this point he's like 150 billion. Probably like lost a few, but he's probably way back up, almost there already, right? But there's literally billions of dollars that Jeff Bezos has just from people boredom binge buying on Amazon.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? What the fuck?
It's crazy. Amazon, well, it may not have been Amazon, it may have just been a reseller or whatever, but I lost my package.
What was your package?
It was a book.
Fuck, what was
I can't say what it is because it was a gift for someone, because I haven't yet given it to them.
And they're definitely watching, because they're a really good friend, so they would be watching. And now if you're not watching, you're a piece of shit.
But you know, I was surprised. I mean, when's the last time that happened to you?
Never.
Actually lost a package.
Never ever happened to me. I always send things to my office though, so it's like super secure, and like, so it's like pretty much impossible for things to be lost.
Right. I mean, I think it must have been like in the facilities, you know.
But what one time I ordered a book actually, and it was a very thin book called The Book of Five Rings by Hiroshi Musashi, who's he's the most accomplished samurai of all time. He killed 61 men in single combat over the course of his life. Story for another time, but really interesting. So I'm reading this book and shit, but it's really, really tiny. It's really thin, and so the package was so small that it was actually in, that it was just buried in other packages, and I never found it. And I just said to Amazon, my package never came. They're just instantly like, no problem, here's another one. And I just wondered to myself, I wonder how often that happens.
Yeah. What kind of fraud can you get away with? No way.
Yeah. I mean, I had a duvet that I got, and duvet.
Yeah, what's your feeling about duvets?
I love duvets.
Duvets are cool. Although they're kind of hard to like put the cover on. I mean, do you have the kind where you have to like tie
Unzip it?
the thing like in a little in the corners, you know, to keep the duvet and the duvet cover. Like sometimes
No, but I wish I did, dude, because that is a bitch. That is the thing that I don't like about duvets. When your fucking pillow thing on the inside of the duvet cover is like all scrunched up in one spot, that is so fucking frustrating, dude. But I just got bamboo sheets. Oh my god.
Wait, what is that?
So worth it.
Bamboo?
They're literally made out of bamboo like fibers instead of cotton, and bamboo fibers are way more copious in their fiber count, like per square inch, like by like an order of magnitude. Like a common regular cotton sheet, 100 thread count per square inch or something. Bamboo, 1,000 thread count per square inch. And so it's just way more smooth. It just feels so much nicer. And it additionally, cotton, the fibers grow in X's and T's. And so apparently because of that, and you'll appreciate this because you're obsessed with circles, but it's not very breathable. And you say it's cotton. I mean, I've put in cotton shirts that are pretty breathable. Yeah, but with bamboo, it's circles. They grow in circular fibers, and so it's just way more breathable because of that. And I'm telling you, man, those sheets are like perpetually like the cold side of the pillow.
Ooh.
But the entire bed,
The
entire bed. When you touch it, you should check it out. Check out my bed when we're done this, huh?
Let's just wrap it up soon.
Yeah, but it's like actually like you're surrounded in the cold side of the pillow.
That's awesome. Wait, how did you discover the secrets of the bamboo? Like,
I found out about bamboo a long time ago when I had a summer internship in Boulder, Colorado. I don't know if it was a coincidence that was Boulder. I mean, but I was doing like this door-to-door business, like business advertising internship, and I pitched this clothing company that was like entirely bamboo clothing and bamboo sheets and shit like that. And then I was like, so what's up with? So it's all bamboo. Like what's up with that?
yeah, like the image in your mind is of like little like strips of like bamboo, or like, you know, you're sleeping on like. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
I had no idea. I didn't know this was a thing.
So great, dude. And my girlfriend is like she's so small. I mean, you know, but she's a fucking furnace, man. I mean, she is like, she puts out more heat than like any human I've ever seen.
Radiation.
Yeah. So it's summertime, and I'm glad I have my sheets. I mean, it literally. They say a bamboo shirt will keep you 10 degrees cooler than a
That's a lot.
Yeah, than a cotton shirt. Yeah.
Well, at the Amazon. Buy some bamboo.
Yeah. You got any plans this weekend? Oh, you got that wedding, right? Is your
Go
first
to a wedding, yeah, for the first time.
I'm so surprised you haven't been to a wedding before. You do like so much eclectic fucking shit with your friends.
Yeah, no one.
But nobody's getting married.
No one.
Probably because they're all doing such eclectic shit.
Well, I mean, some of my friends had got married, but like didn't have like big weddings.
Not enough to invite you.
Yeah.
I guess.
Basically, yeah.
Fuck.
Well, I mean, it's not strictly true. I mean, like, my one friend got married, like, basically privately, but then had, like, a party for us, like, at the Pinball Museum.
What?
Is it in Asbury Park? Is that it?
Ever since I was in
It was really cool. They had, like, all these games, you know, from the, from like the 40s onwards, you know, like old like analog games, like little wooden paddles and stuff like that, up through like early pinball machines to like, you know, digital stuff, and you know you could just
digital
play them for free.
That's no good.
Well, you know,
right? Is it cool?
You got the full arc, you know, of
but is it cool?
history.
But a digital pinball machine?
Oh,
I mean,
you mean like a I don't know if there was one that was completely virtual, but
okay.
Where they have like all sorts of.
If it doesn't have a
fancy,
ball, I mean that's fucking bullshit.
I think they all had balls. I'm not sure though. Maybe there was one that was completely virtual. Not sure. But they get like increasingly sophisticated.
What kind of
like
soulless
the plot
bastard would make that?
Yeah, really. Yeah, it's just like, well, we're gonna release it on
Alright,
iPad and
dot
like
goes
arcade, and it's gonna work.
And watch out for this imaginary thing right here. It goes boo-doo.
Well, because it brings up the point that like,
no.
I mean, so much of pinball, that sets it apart from other things. It's like the tactile stuff, like shit's ringing, like shaking the machine, it's buzzing.
That's all that's keeping VR porn from like just taking over the entire world. I'm like really worried about
one of the things.
AR and VR, just in general, just like people are gonna get so fucking sucked up in that shit. It's fucking terrifying. Like imagine when you can put on a full body suit with like vibrational stimulators and shit, and then you basically can just be in there for like hours and hours and hours. And then imagine a few years after that, they'll just be like, oh yeah, we can just like hook you up to a machine so you get like your like stuff through like just rubbing it on your skin, and it'll like go through your skin, and then you get the nutrients, and like you can stay in there for like you stay up there for like 3 days. It's like, oh my god, people are really gonna choose that as an alternative to living.
It's possible, yeah.
Living here anyway.
Yeah, it could go either way. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure I can say anything all that intelligent about it, but like...
I'm not sure I can say anything intelligent about anything.
Yeah, it's you don't know if these are the kinds of technologies that will be incorporated like somewhat seamlessly into life, like the way like your iPhone is, or be more like extreme, go into the holodeck kind of thing.
Well,
I am excited for the opportunity, like I was saying before, to be able to like perceive as well as like externalize, like really like, I don't know, it's like complicated brainwaves, what can you say? Without having to like articulate them in speech or write it out or paint it or play a musical instrument or whatever it is, like the chance to create like new kinds of media.
I do have a theory. It's not necessarily what I believe, but I have like just imagined like maybe this is what's really going on with like reality. What if we're basically, or maybe not even you, like just me because it's only me, and then for you it's like just you or something. But you're basically in this celestial spaceship that's not in our space-time. It's more meta than that. But basically, you're not Matt, but you're going on this journey, and it's going to take a really long time to get to where you're going. So what's the most productive thing you could possibly do?
Sleep.
Live other lives. Well, maybe, right? People don't sleep enough. But live other lives and learn things in these virtual realities that are so real that you think that they're real, because then you'll really be committed and you'll really like get into it and learn and stuff like that. And then
that's a classic thing. Like if you're gonna enter into a world, you're gonna end up believing.
And then when you wait, maybe you have multiple deaths and lives on this celestial spaceship on your way to the next destination. You're like, all right, I just lived 1,000 lives we're going light speed to fucking Alpha Centauri or something. It took us however long, and so I lived 100 lives in that time, and now I'm like really, really good. I'm really set. From like an existential standpoint.
But when I hear stuff like that, it puts me in the mood of Shankara, where I'm like,
what's Shankara?
That guy.
The
guy, Vedanta guy. Because you're like, well, 1,000 lives, whatever.
Right.
I'd be like, okay, let's give me something else, and then be like, okay, let's be done with it. You know what I mean? Like, contemplating life after life after life, you know.
Well, they say apparently people that are not dead forever, can't believe them, but they say that, and Buddha actually, I guess, said this as well, that, like, you will achieve this, like, when you're not attached to, like, anything in this reality anymore. But it's really funny because when Buddha achieved enlightenment, this is apparently how he did it. The day that it happened, he was like, I'm going to achieve enlightenment today. I'm going to start meditating, and I'm not going to stop until I'm enlightened. Kind of a funny, really funny, like, way to, like, go to enlightenment.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to stop, scrubbing this dish until
it's
off of it.
It's almost like an ego thing. It's like, until this happens, I'm not going to stop, you know? And it's like, it's funny, because it's like not being a quantumist, right?
Or how do you...
Because you're like, I'm craving this thing, and so I'm just going to do it, and I'm just going to keep
going. Well, no, I mean, that's exactly what this Pam lady was saying to do. You know, you just be like, I am going to have proof of God's existence. In the next 48 hours, he's going to give me a sign.
And what happened?
Well, she gives you a little sheet, and you're supposed to fill it out and, like, write what happened. Like, formulate a desire, be absolutely clear what it is, give God a deadline, the quantum field, give it back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the signs are all around us, like, at all times. I mean, it's just however much you're ready to be able to see. I mean, obviously, there's vast amounts of things that you could perceive at any given time that you're not. I mean, just a great example of that is when you're a child, you're typically not picking up as many things as when you're an adult. I mean, hopefully, in terms of your character arc. But, so that just goes to show you that, like, the sort of like the elasticity of reality is very much determined upon your elasticity of your internal bandwidth. And if you can really see these things, I mean, you can see magic all the time. I mean, I think magic exists. Like, science is magic. It's just that we're starting to learn how to divine out the nature of reality a little bit more than we have in the past. That doesn't mean that it's any less magical.
Yeah, well, like, all the, I've often said, like, all the old dreams of, like, the sorcerers and the wizards, many of them have been achieved, like alchemy, like being able to transmute the elements.
Shoot fire, flying.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of stuff. I just think about this paradox of, like, this, because she was going so far as to suggest, to go the whole hog, right, that it's like reality. Like, okay, because it's certainly true that if you, like, prime yourself, like, your mind, you will notice things that you wouldn't bother. You'd be like, I'm going to just count all the red cars I see today. And like, holy shit, there's tons of red cars. Like, there's a lot one can say about, like, human attention and the way that, like, believing in yourself really does matter and so forth, like, whatever
really
else physics says, you know what I mean? But then, like, there's, like, this other step where you're sort of, like...
Yeah, physics would say it doesn't matter if you believe in yourself.
Well, I mean, if that's the physics of your brain, like, if you have to believe in yourself to get shit done, then physics says that's what you gotta do.
I guess that's
whatever.
True. Maybe I don't know shit about physics.
Well, I mean, what is physics?
I definitely
it's just an explanation,
Yeah, it's just an explanation.
But, metaphysically, there's, like, this other statement you can make where it's just, like, desire is what creates reality, like, literally.
Yeah, I thought about that.
And, it's like you will experience, like, you won't get sick, like, if you just don't believe you won't get sick. Like, you will be rich and famous and beautiful and, like, successful if you just, like, believe it hard enough. And, like, my whole thing is, like, am I the asshole if, like, that suddenly fills me with a great desire to desire that not to be true about the world, to, like, ruin all those people's dreams?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. It's like,
can I fight desire with desire? Can I fuck them up and, like, be like, no, bitch, like, math counts too. You lose, because, like, my desire matters as well.
Fuck you. I don't care about you now. But I think, yeah, but to an extent, because there's levels to the the sort of the manifestation and the actualization of your desire, right? I mean, there's just the ability to sort of feel it and think it, and then it comes. I mean, I've had so many experiences like that in my life, on really profound levels, where there's just no way I would be. I mean, my therapist, I got my therapist because I was like, I'd been in the United States for like 4 months, and I had like just gotten to a monetary standpoint where I was like, okay, I can start like paying for a therapist now. And I really needed a therapist. I was like, I'm ready. And I called like 12 people. I remember it was 12 therapists one afternoon. And then I had to go meet up with my buddy. And so I called a Lyft. And when I was in the Lyft, the woman was like, oh, what'd you do today? And I said, oh, yeah, I've been calling up a lot of therapists.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, I'm a therapist. And
Nice.
Cheryl became my therapist.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell stories like that too. Of just crazy
like all day
coincidences that, like, you know, and it could be at a level of it's just coincidence. It could be at a level of it's like it is quantum entanglement. It could be at the level of like it's not quantum entanglement. It's like spiritual entanglement, which is something even beyond that. It's hard to know.
Like, how many times have you been like, I just need Halle Berry right now, and she just comes. She's always there for me.
Yeah, totally.
I don't have that level of desire yet. I also think that, like...
But I like the way she talks about it in this book, you know, this lady. It's just like, you gotta focus your desire like a laser beam.
Yeah, like a pinpoint. They say that in yoga, too, one-pointed gaze. And then you really start being like, what's one-pointed gaze? Okay, well, I'm gonna be on this, like, tiny little spot right in front of me, and you don't want to deviate from it. But then, like, how small is small?
Uh-huh.
And your whole vision
Always go smaller.
changes. It starts to change, man. From just because you start to, like, your eyes start to embody, like, what is it to have single pointed focus.
Yeah. Well, also, if you look straight ahead, you know what I mean, it's like you eventually lock into the distortion that's in the center of your vision.
Yeah.
Sort of the optic nerve, like the weird way that connects.
That's true. You want to call it?
Yeah. It's been good.
It was really good. Thanks everybody for listening. Hey, follow your dreams and shit. I know it can be scary, but it's definitely worth it.
Desire.
You might achieve them, and that's better than not even trying.
Well, desire your desires. See ya.